Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our second installment in the spring 2021 webinar series for the Tennessee Master Beef Producer Program. My name is Justin Reinhardt. I'm an Extension Beef Cattle Specialist in the University of Tennessee Animal Science Department. I'm joined here with another facilitator of ours, Courtney Carter, who's a Beef Program Coordinator for UT Animal Science, and Dr. Lew Strickland will be our presenter tonight. Also from the Department of Animal Science here at UT and also College of Veterinary Medicine. I'll give him more of an introduction in just a moment, but as we've been doing with the past webinars, if you've been able to tune in for the previous one and might have been even on our fall webinar series, you'll know that I try to go over some housekeeping type things here before we get started, just to remind you of how some of this operates. And this may or may not be your first one, so give you a cue into how this works. Before I do that, even, I'd like to remind everybody that we're partnering with the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef on this. They've been really good partners in this, and we're working together on several different things as it pertains to sustainability. Sustainability is a buzzword definitely in the beef cattle industry. We want to make sure that as your representatives from the land-grant university that serves you, that we help provide a voice for cow-calf producers, stocker operators, maybe some feeders in the state, primarily cow-calf and stocker operators, to have a voice in what the industry calls sustainability. And we know that we do a lot of things that by nature and by market forces are inherently or naturally sustainable. So we want to make sure those are recognized and also try to improve our sustainability practices as well, and provide some input and maybe even just evaluation on how you might do that on your own operation. So through our membership in the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, we've been able to make connections with Golden State Foods and Nestle, both very active in the beef industry, both very active. And Golden State Foods has headquarters here in the Southeast. So close to what we do. They understand what cow-calf producers and stocker operators do, so they understand this side of the business, and we're willing to partner with us to help support our programming to work together to make sure these metrics are measuring the correct sustainability outcomes and pointing us in the right direction to improve those outcomes. But again, a big part of this is so that Tennessee cow-calf producers have a voice in the sustainability discussion and are prepared for when the market starts putting incentives in place for a proven sustainably produced calf to go through the rest of the beef production chain. And again, a lot of those things you will already have in place, and just might want to get up to speed on a few others. So thanks to Golden State Foods and Nestle for partnering with us on this. So tonight, I'll reiterate that tonight is a webinar. If you've been on Zoom meetings, this is a little bit different. So in a webinar platform, we do not see your video. We don't hear your audio. So basically, the only thing we see as presenters and panelists and facilitators of this, there's three of us on the screen that we see video of. So we don't see anybody out there at your house or don't hear you. So with that, the two ways that we have, or three ways, I guess, that we have to communicate with each other. One is that as Dr. Strickland presents this evening, Courtney will be putting up questions throughout the webinar this evening. It'll pop up on your screen like this example that you see here. And this is not a live question. This is just an example. But if you're viewing in the actual desktop app or on your phone, you'll see this question come up, and you can choose one of these. And that's just so we have some feedback, and Dr. Strickland will know, kind of have a direction to go with what he's talking about. So that'll be one way that we interact this evening. Another way is through the question and answer box. If you look somewhere on your screen, you should see Q&A. And if you'll click that, you can type in a question. I'll be moderating those questions this evening. I'll be looking at them as they come in. I won't be answering all of them, probably won't answer many of them, but I'll get a feel for the type of questions that are out there. And depending on how much time we have at the end of the webinar, I'll ask those in kind of groups of the same type of question, or I might ask your specific question of Dr. Strickland and let him respond to that. So those are the two ways that we'll mainly interact. There's also a chat box. You can pull up the chat box and the panelists can see that if you'd like to communicate with us on that as well. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Lew Strickland. He's going to talk to us about the short-term and long-term considerations for disease management from a veterinarian perspective. Dr. Strickland did his undergraduate at Auburn University, also did his DVM and became a veterinarian there through Auburn's program of College of Veterinary Medicine. And then even beyond that, he has a master's in theriogenology, which some of us would call repro. So theriogenology is the study of reproduction in animals. And he is a delegate to the American College of Theriogenology, I think, and he may correct me actually on what those letters mean. I've heard several different versions of that. And with that, I'll just say that you're in for a treat. If you've heard Dr. Strickland present before, it's an interesting way to hear some things that we've always heard about in health management in livestock, tonight specifically in cattle production. But I always enjoy the twist he puts on it, and he explains it in a way that somebody like me can understand it, not having a tremendous amount of training in disease management or anything. So I appreciate the way he does that. And he's been a part of our faculty here in UT Animal Science for probably close to 10 years now, Doc. I'm not sure how long it's been, but probably done enough work to justify saying he's been here for 20 years, probably one of the hardest working animal science faculty that we have by quite a bit. And you see on the screen there all the things he's in charge of, doing continuing education for veterinarians across the state, oversees the health management for all the cattle, all the livestock on all the research and education centers in the UT system. So besides all that, having a lot of experience in managing health on cattle, he also comes from a cattle production background. He was a dairyman for a lot of years, grew up on a dairy farm. And so he knows not just how to talk about it, but he knows how to do it. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Doc, and I'm going to turn it over to you and let you have at it.
Very good. Thank you, Justin. Let me make sure I've got, there you go. Have you got my presentation there? Everybody good?
Not quite yet, Doc. It might come up in a second. It seems like we had a lag a minute ago, but I don't see it just yet.
Hold on a minute. Let me end. And do I need to share screen again, Justin?
Yes, sir.
That's what's wrong? There we go. That's the problem there. I might know how to work on cows and diesel engines, but I don't know how to do electronics.
Do you know how to weld?
There we go. Now I got my presentation now.
It should be coming up in just a second. Like I say, I think we have a little bit of a lag. I don't see it just yet.
It says that I'm screen sharing. It's got it on my.
There it is. All right.
All right, very good. Thank you for that introduction, Justin. About the only mistake there, it's diplomate of the American College of Theriogenologists, but and you can see right there, but as one of my fellow theriogenologists says, he calls that dead animal coffin toter. And I've made fun of that so much that my son, my youngest son, actually does a little bit of the oh shoot, what's that where you got the little piece of embroidery. He does embroidery, and he made me a little embroidery that's got dead animal coffin toter on it. So that's probably more of what that stands for as opposed to diplomate. But thank you for that introduction, Justin. And certainly as we go through this tonight, and I got this screen up here. I don't think too many of you will have problems with my Alabama accent, but certainly if I say something that throws you a curveball, by all means, throw that question up there. Let's make sure that it gets explained, because I'm going to kind of I'm kind of going to go into an area that you may not be used to. I want you to understand about how this immune system works. I've said this before, and you may have heard me say this in some other meetings. If you repair your own equipment, it certainly helps you to understand how that equipment works before you start working on it, so that it helps you understand how to repair it. Well, that's the whole idea of what I want to do with this talk tonight. Is I want you to understand kind of how the immune system works. And if you kind of understand how something works, that may help you to prevent it on your farm, or give a better understanding of how to treat it or prevent it, or simply keep it out of there to begin with. So first of all, vaccines train the immune system. So what we're doing with these vaccines is I'm actually teaching this immune system to have a response to whatever's been presented to it. Here's something else that I want to get across here, and I'm not trying to belittle anyone. I don't know how many times I have been called on the phone, and this is back when I was in practice in Cleveland. I've been practicing for about 20 something years now, and I practiced in Cleveland, Tennessee to begin with. And I used to get this call on the phone all the time, and I've still gotten them now. Well, Doc, I vaccinated this cow with LA200. Well, no, you didn't. Vaccines are not antimicrobials, and vice versa. They are two separate entities. A vaccine, once again, trains the immune system to respond to whatever been presented to it. And an antimicrobial actually is treating a disease. These are divided into injectables, intranasals, killed modified lives, and we're going to talk about those as we go through. It is a key component of protection, but it is not does not make your animal ironclad. No vaccine is 100%. I want you to understand that part. We're going to talk about that here in just a little while as to why no vaccine is 100%. By all means, I want you to read the label. I do this with my veterinary students. As they are going into clinics, I get to talk with them as they're going into clinics, right before they go into clinics, and something that I make each one of them raise their right hand and swear to this, that they are going to read the label before they draw up a medication. Once they've drawn up that medication, they are going to read the label again before you give that medication. So I want you to do the same thing. I want you to read that label, get a basic understanding of what you're fixing to do, and then read it again, just to make sure I'm doing this right to begin with, because these vaccines are, they've been studied, a lot of money's been put into them, a lot of research has been put into them, and this label is there for a reason, so you will use it in a manner that it's the most effective. And I also want you to work with your veterinarian. I can't if we were all together, I couldn't stand at the door as you were leaving tonight and hand you a cookie cutter vaccine program for each one of you. These vaccine protocols fit your farm. They're kind of like tailor made. Not all of you wear the same size shoe, or the same size shoe is comfortable on everybody. So I want you to work with your veterinarian to see what is needed on your farm. And if you don't need it, there's no need in using it. And once again, use what you need there. So let's go to question number 1.
Yeah, give me a second to get it pulled.
Okay.
Okay, you should see.
Okay, there we go.
So the question is, what is an antigen?
Okay, what is an antigen? Is it a BBD virus, an internal parasite, a Pasteurella bacteria, an obnoxious Alabama fan, or all of the above?
Hey, Doc, while they're answering that, let me mention a couple of things. First is I already indicated where you got most of your degrees. I think folks know the origin of some of the the answer selections there.
Oh, yeah. They will.
The other thing I'll say, and that I didn't mention on the introduction, is that we had a little bit of confusion on the survey, follow the survey link that'll come to you. I'll address that more at the end of the webinar, but just wanted to let everybody know. I'll tell everybody kind of what the confusion was, and I'll clear all that up here at the end. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to share results with you, Doc.
Okay, so what does that mean there by the orange? Does that mean that was the most votes were given to Pastorella?
Yep,
Okay.
38%.
Okay, 12% of you were correct, all of the above. What an antigen is, well, let's just go to the next slide. So I'm gonna let Courtney close out and let's go to the next slide. I've got some definitions, some terminology here. An antigen is anything that is an irritant to the immune system. And so all of those that I just presented to you there, they are an irritant, an antigen. That is something that is a bacteria, that's a virus, that's an internal parasite. It's a piece of pollen. I guarantee you there's somebody else out there tonight, and I should have taken some more allergy medicine before I started. Your allergies are acting up, and that's because you've been introduced to some pollen. You know how it is. Springtime comes around. Oh my word, your sinuses are miserable. And so an antigen is any kind of foreign body or pathogen that immune system gets introduced to, and they go, oh, hey, I need to react to this. And when I react to this, I then make an antibody. And you may have heard that called immunoglobulin. That's what, if I'm talking about veterinary students, I will go with immunoglobulin. I probably won't go with antibody that much, just because we like to use those big $2 words. And this is a list of antibodies here. The IgG, IgG, IgM, those are made internally, mostly to a immune response to either a natural infection or a vaccine. And then IgA, we're going to talk about IgA later. IgA tends to be more of a local antibody. So we're going to go over those here in just a little bit. So we'll talk about them much more. There's also passive and active immunity. That's two types of immunity, and also innate immunity that calf already has when it hits the ground. And we're going to talk about passive immunity here in just a little bit. We've got mucosal and systemic immunity. That mucosal is that IgA. That's your allergies. That's where if you get that pollen overload or and of all things, I had a lot of allergies to hay. So you can imagine how well that went come baling hay and feeding hay and everything else. And some of you probably have the same thing. I just flat out was just tickled to death when we finally got a cab tractor because I know so much of that hay dust when we're baling hay. And we're going to talk about systemic immunity here in just a minute. All right, pathogen, that can be that BVD virus, that can be an IBR virus, that can be an internal parasite, those kind of things. So those are pathogens. Or as some of you put up there, that Pastorella bacteria. Those are all pathogens. Those are the bad guys. Those are the bad guys. And then naive animal. That's an animal that has never had exposure to a pathogen. And they don't have any antibodies built up to that pathogen. That can be a naive animal. Most likely is going to be that animal. Let's just say you've got a farm. You basically have your own plum island. Nobody's around you for 10 miles. Most likely those animals are not going to have much exposure. So that's a naive animal. So innate immunity. That's why we were just talking about that calf when it hits the ground. It's going to have innate immunity, same as us. Innate immunity, epidermis, skin, that is your first line of defense. That's what keeps that Pasteurella bacteria out, or any other pathogen that you may come in contact with, unless you have cracks in your skin. Uh, that's why I tell you to wear gloves when you are delivering a calf, or let's just say you're working your cows. Wear gloves, either the thick latex gloves or leather gloves, whatever. Wear gloves, protect yourself. There are certain, we call them blood chemicals, that are already there present inside the blood, that can attack pathogens once they're there. And also those immune cells that we talked about, IgA. Also, we got white blood cells, we have macrophages, neutrophils, those kind of things that are there. And we're going to talk about those. We're going to tell you how those work. So you can have a natural exposure to the pathogen. That's where, let's just say you buy a calf. You don't know this. You buy a calf that has BVD and comes into your herd, and then the others that have not been exposed in your herd there are hanging around this calf or this cow. And then they become naturally exposed to the pathogen. Well, they're still going to get sick, even though they're going to be making antibodies. It takes time to make those antibodies. If they're that naive animal, they've never seen it before, it's going to take time to learn that antigen, to make those memory cells to help get rid of it, to help fight it off. So this vaccine, what you're doing with vaccination, is you're basically tricking the system to make them, the immune system, think, oh, I've been naturally exposed, so I need to start making these antigens. So I'm going to make these antigens. And what you're doing, you're vaccinating a healthy animal, so they learn the antigen. So when they do get naturally exposed, they're able to jump on it and get after it pretty quick. As opposed, think about it this way: I've got to build a fence. Well, I've got to go get some posts, I go get some wire, staples, everything else. So it takes time to make those antibodies. It takes time for you to go get that fencing material. But if you've already gone to your farm supply and you've already bought all that, well, then I can start on that fence much quicker than if I'm just going, oh, well, hey, let's down the road, let's do that. So what that vaccination does, it makes that immune system respond much, much quicker. All right, this is just kind of a cartoon, just showing you you can either have a natural infection that creates immunity, or you can have a vaccine that creates immunity. So it triggers an immune response, and they develop those long-term immunity, those cells that we're going to go over here in just a minute. If you've got that animal that's been vaccinated, they don't have to endure the illness as much. Here's something else I want everybody to understand this tonight. The vaccine does not make your animal ironclad. No vaccine's 100%. All a vaccine does is reduce clinical signs. So that animal may very well still get a slight BVD infection, or whatever that infection is, a respiratory infection. They may get a slight infection, but it's not going to be as bad as if they didn't have that vaccination and they got naturally exposed to it. Then you're going to have a really, really sick animal. And the low risk of reaction greatly outweighs the risk of the complication of that natural infection. Here's something else here, just to kind of go over it with you. Once again, a cartoon that's kind of explaining the difference here. An antigen is that protein on a foreign object: BVD virus, IBR virus, Pasteurella bacteria, pollen, that stimulates the immune system to produce an antibody. And you notice a little cartoon right here. You can see where that antibody attaches to that antigen there. And I want you to look at it right here. Kind of looks like hands here, a pair of hands there, they're attaching, and they're very, very specific. So what they'll do is, I'm sure we've got some John Deere fans in the audience tonight, or lifelong John Deere owners. If you will remember a key from a 40-20 will also fit a key from a 40-55. Almost 3 to 4 decades worth of tractors there use the same exact key to start that tractor. And so that's exactly what this is. You've got an antigen here that comes in and it fits that antibody. It's a very specific way. It's that very specific key that fits that. But that key from that Case International, or we'll go to that international, we'll go way on back. We'll go to international. That international key is not going to fit that John Deere slot. The very same way here, a herpes virus, I'm just going to call that one a herpes virus, right there is not going to fit a BVD virus, or it's not going to fit a Pasteurella bacteria. And just real quick to go over that part too, a bacteria is a organism that can reproduce on its own. It can grow, it can grow, it can grow. A virus has to have a cell body. And I'm just going to call that a cell body right there. It has to have a cell to get into that cell and then to start to reproduce. So that's kind of the difference there between a bacterium and a virus. And this is just another little cartoon. You kind of see it a little closer here. You can see where that antigen is going to fit that antibody. You can see that very specific key. So you can see right here, antibody, antigen, you got a pathogen that has that, that antigen on it. And you can see right here, this is just kind of showing you that's a square, and that's a triangle. A different antibody will be made for that antigen. So every time they get exposed to that, a different antibody is being made that is very specific to fit that to then fight it off. And this is just another cartoon right here showing you some ways that an antigen, here's another way that an antigen can kind of come in and trigger the immune system to start working. You've got an antigen that comes in right here, it attaches, and then that antigen is attached to a CD4 T cell. Now, this is one of those, that CD4 cell is going to be one that goes on down the road and makes a helper cell. So later on, when it sees that antigen again, it can start fighting. But then you've got another cell over here. This is once again, the antigen coming in. You've got an antigen presenting cell. So you've literally got a cell there that finds an antigen, grabs it, and then is going to take it to the cell. Well, what this does right here, it takes it to the cell and it goes to this CD8 cell. I call this CD8 cell the Dirty Harry cell. He is the one that is kind of that go ahead punk, make my day. He is the one hanging around, and he is cytotoxic. He's ready to shoot somebody. He's ready to get rid of somebody. So quick as an antigen comes in, he turns on that cell and he's ready to go to fighting. But that CD4 cell, it's going to take him a little time because he's going to make some helper cells on down the road. And you can kind of see the cartoon right here. This is that antigen presenting cell. Takes it on out here to that CD4 helper cell here, makes a helper cell here. It then makes memory B cells. That memory B cell is one of those, it sees the antigen, recognizes that antigen, and then, well, there it is right there, memory B cell. It's very specific for that virus that it saw. Hey, buddy, I've seen that virus before. I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to help this immune system fight it off. So this is where you've got those cells that are basically, memorizing these things, kind of like those spy movies. They memorize who the bad guy is and they go out hunting them. They're trying to get rid of them. So that's what that memory B cell and those macrophages go in, clean stuff up. So that's what your vaccination is doing to the immune system. It's turning that immune system on to get ready to fight. And then this is just kind of a cartoon. I want to put this on here just because it's showing some of those different cells. Once again, you got your pathogen out here, which is an antigen. It goes in here. Here's that antigen presenting cell. You kind of follow this along here. step one. Then he moves on to the local lymph nodes, hands it off to them, says, here you go, here's an antigen. I want you to make some cells that help fight that. And that's what we're doing down here. Step three, here we go. Here's that CD8, that dirty hairy cell, and the CD4 cell that's going to come in later and fight. It's making those memory cells, which is humoral immunity, and then that cellular immunity that comes along, and it helps to fight, and then it attacks those pathogens, helps to get rid of them. So with cellular immunity, what happens there? You've got activation of those white blood cells. Now, cellular immunity is going to be more of that down the road. Humoral is kind of going to be first. Cellular is down the road. It activates those white blood cells, those neutrophils, those those macrophages, those eosinophils. It activates those and then causes a release of cytokines. So now these cytokines are sort of that, think about watching an old John Wayne movie. When they said charge, you always had that guy that had the bugle that was blowing the bugle. That's what that cytokine does. It blows the bugle and tells the other cells, hey guys, come on, we got to go. We've got to fight them off, and we got to get out there. There's a pathogen that we got to kill. And this is what I'm showing you here. Here's that cell mediated immunity, where it actually goes out there and it's activating those cells, those pathogens get within the cells. Those T cells get ready to fight. They go out there, they're releasing cytokines. That macrophage is activated. It's gonna kill those microbes. And here is kind of a downside to part of the immune system. And this is where sometimes the immune system, we have to try to stop it a little bit because it gets overreactive and it starts killing cells. So you've got lysis of cells. So sometimes the immune system can go a little bit too far, and we got to stop it because it's done its job, but it doesn't want to stop. It wants to try to keep killing things. So sometimes we stop the immune system because it's killing too many cells. All right, question number 2.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, launch number 2. You should see it on your screen.
Here we go. I said that a while ago. What is an example of passive immunity? And I'm gonna leave you up there, let y'all vote, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'll give about 30 more seconds probably.
And while everybody's clicking on that, had some questions and chat in the chat box here about some audio issues. Audio seems to be going pretty well on my end. I will tell you there's some slowdown. It seems like the connection is getting a little slow at times, but then catches back up. So you might have some kind of audio interruption, but we're still getting pretty consistent audio on our end. And of course, I'm saying that, and if you're not getting audio, you wouldn't hear me say it, but there's that.
So is it, I mean, do you think it's on your end or my end? Or if you're getting my audio pretty good, I'm just making sure my hotspot's not acting up and I need to do something else.
Well, I think you are slowing down a little bit on your end, Lou, but I think it's a combination of maybe that and some other individual spots across the state.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sharing results with you.
Very good. For the most part, everybody got that one correct. Passive immunity is that calf nursing colostrum in the first 12 hours of life. You've known since you were knee-high to a grasshopper that a calf has to have colostrum in the first 12 hours of life. And that's why, it's because of the placenta type. Nothing crosses that placental barrier. So no antibodies are made by that calf, and no antibodies are received by that calf from mama. So until that little angel nurses, It has to nurse in the first 12 hours of life to get that passive immunity to then give it protection. Okay, let's go on to types of vaccines. I'll try to go through these fairly quickly because I want to make sure we stay on time here. Killed vaccines, where I like to use these, is in a closed herd. You're your own plum island, and you do not know the pregnancy status of your cows. It's a very safe vaccine, but you'll notice here it's slower onset of immunity. The immunity is not as long lasting. Minimal risk of abortion if you do not know the pregnancy status of your cows and you vaccinate her with a killed. Most likely you're going to be fairly safe. It's not going to cause an abortion. But you will, by all means, you will have to give at least 2 doses initially. And read the label. It'll tell you exactly how to use it. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Modified live, it is exactly what it says it is. It's a virus that's been modified to where it doesn't cause full bore disease. I generally recommend these in a herd that's a Grand Central Station herd. Animals coming and going all the time. Or either you've got a neighbor fence to fence, and they're constantly buying new cows, bringing them in. And you know the pregnancy status of your cows. This is really important. If you vaccinate a mama cow that is pregnant with a modified live virus and she's never had that before, there's a good possibility you're going to cause an abortion. If you read that label, it will tell you vaccinate her during her open period while she's open before breeding. Then, according to label directions, you can vaccinate her once she's pregnant. Now, this is some recent work that's coming out. Paul Waltz, Dr. Paul Waltz at Auburn. He's a brainwave on BVD, and he was telling me that they've done some work where you vaccinate with modified lives while they're open, then come back with a killed and vaccinate her during her pregnancy period, and you get there's some pretty good data that says that works really well. And plus you've got a really safe vaccine. Now, I will say you follow the label direction. It tells you that you can vaccinate her pregnant, but they decided to try it and got some pretty good protection out of it. The immunity is stronger and longer lasting. I didn't say it on the other one there on killed. Most likely with the killed, you're going to get a knot on the neck. Some people like that. That knot on the neck is where there's an adjuvant that's been added to it to make them have an immune response. And with this one, you don't have to have that adjuvant. That adjuvant is typically what causes that knot on the neck. Now, usually if you vaccinate one black leg, you're going to see that knot on the neck. You will have to mix it on the farm. And I'll say this, and I'm probably going to say it again here in a little bit. Mix it as you need it and use it as you mix it. Don't get the bright idea, I got 300 calves to vaccinate, I'm gonna mix it all up at once. No, don't do that. Label recommendations are mix and use it up within an hour. So keep that in mind. Routes of administration, sub-Q, intramuscular, intranasal. Of course, this is what we call parenteral, sub-Q and IM, and then intranasal squirted right up the nose. And we're going to talk about intranasals here in just a second. We talked about refrigeration, keeping up with it, making sure it's stored properly. Make sure that refrigerator is working right. You're mixing it up. I will say this, and I'm not the end all do all, and I will listen to somebody that's done this quite a bit more than me. And Dr. Clyde Lane, I really appreciate this gentleman. He's really an awesome help, and y'all are familiar with him. He was telling me it's a much better idea to, when you mix your modified lives, don't shake it. Just roll it in between your hands. So I think this is going to be right the opposite of James Bond. I think his is shaken, not stirred. This is stirred, not shaken. Just slowly roll it in between your hands until it's mixed. No shaking, because these vaccines are nothing but proteins, and we need to be as careful with that protein as possible to where that vaccine works like it needs to. And of course, location, BQA guidelines here, needle size. Single-use needle, changing needles out. A lot of y'all have heard my get on my soapbox about single-use needles. Change those needles out. There's way too many diseases that can be passed by not changing needles. Change those needles out. It doesn't take that long and it doesn't cost that much. Just take the extra time. It's well worth it. One dead cow or one cow that you got to bury in the ground is going to buy a whole lot of needles. And once again, stay away from that rump. Okay, question number 3.
Okay, there you go. Question 3.
Here we go. We're moving up to our intranasals here. Which is the following statements concerning an intranasal vaccine is or true? And I'll let y'all vote.
Hadn't heard a joke from Courtney yet while we're answering questions. You got one for us, Courtney?
Oh yeah, I got one. Lou, we just tell jokes to kind of pass the time.
Okay, got it.
So, what do you call a cow with 2 legs? What do you call a cow with 2 legs?
I'm not even going to venture a guess on that.
It wouldn't be ground beef, lean beef.
Lean beef.
Ground beef.
Don't ruin it, Doc.
Yeah, okay.
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay, I'm gonna share results with you.
Very good. Y'all are learning how to take tests. This is what I tell the vet students and animal science students. If two of them appear to be true, most likely the answer is all the above. An intranasal vaccine. What that intranasal does is when you spray that up their nose, it gets onto their mucous membranes. Up that sinus passage is mucous membranes, and that's where IgA is made. IgA is that antibody that jumps on it and kills it right away when it comes into the nasal passages. And of course, there's other areas in the body that make IgA, but I mostly think of the nasal passages. Where I like to use, and all those others are correct as well, you literally can use that, according to label directions, you literally can use that quick as the calf hits the ground, and it will work, and it will dodge those maternal antibodies. So that's why an intranasal can be very helpful in a respiratory outbreak. What I will do if I've got a group, go in, Doc, we're respiratory disease eating us up. I'll separate those out. The calves that have not, or the animals that are not sick yet, they will get an intranasal. That'll give them protection like now. And then those that are already sick, they get to go to the sick pen, they stay away. And those are the ones that get the treatment with the antibiotic and not the ones that are still feeling okay. Okay, I get this one. I get this question quite a bit. Doc, that vaccine wasn't worth doodling squat. It didn't work. I had vaccine break, that kind of thing. So let's go over some reasons why your vaccine's not working. I had this didn't happen to me, so I get to tell this story secondhanded. I did have a veterinarian that we called in to one of the CE meetings, and he was kind of going over some reasons your vaccines aren't working. And he was telling us about a producer was having issues with the vaccine not working. And so we kind of decided to do, kind of this CSI thing, and the devil's in the details. He started asking questions, and he was asking, well, what do you do with your vaccines? Well, when I get it out of the box, I've got this one with liquid in it. I use that liquid, and I've never decided what to do with the one that's got the powder in it. And so, that's why his vaccine wasn't working, because he wasn't mixing them together. So I always read that label direction. Another reason, animal was exposed prior to the vaccination. So you've got an animal that could already be incubating the disease, and it takes time for that animal to make antibodies. So not gonna work. Maternal antibodies, like we just talked about, this is kind of right here, looking at calf immunity. And this goes back to that passive immunity we we're talking about a while ago. When that calf nurses, right here, it gets that great big slug of antibodies from mama. Well, those only last for so long, and you can kind of see out here, it lasts for about 6 weeks. So roughly 6 weeks. And then that calf starts building its own immunity, that active immunity. So what if you gave that vaccine too soon? And the antibodies from mama's colostrum are attacking that vaccine. Now, I will say this, I want you to look at something. If you talk to any veterinarian or anybody that's graduated vet school the past 2-3 decades, they're going to tell you to vaccinate that calf at 3 to 4 months of age. We're kind of on out here. But if you look right here, you can see that passive immunity is going away at about a month. Now, I'm going to try to explain this. I want somebody to stop me or whatever, because I confused the snot out of a bunch of people the other day with this when I talked about it. And it's usually not too difficult. I open my mouth and my size 12 fits right in my mouth, and folks don't understand what I'm saying. All right. If everything is working fine on your farm with vaccinating calves at about 3 to 4 months of age, keep going that route. Don't stop. You're doing it right. But if you are having issues on your farm, I'm having calves that are getting sick way too early. I'm losing calves down around here about a month to 6 weeks. You can move your vaccines up quicker and they will work. That's why we do research. We have found that actually you can vaccinate quicker and get a bang for the buck. But once again, I'm not saying you need to start vaccinating your calves at 1 to 2 months of age. I'm just saying, if you're having problems, you're running into issues, I got to do something to stop the hemorrhaging, you can vaccinate down around 1 to 2 months of age and you'll get bang for the buck. If everything's still cool, the sun's still shining, it's 72 degrees outside, the birds are singing on your farm, keep it at 3 to 4 months of age. Did that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna keep going because I know there's 500 people on here, so I'm gonna keep moving. But hopefully somebody put in the chat there if I confuse somebody.
Yeah, we're getting some yeses in here, Lou, and we might need to revisit it at the end there if we need to. But I'll keep asking questions.
I'll keep going. Okay. Once again, we're back to reading the label, following directions. It's going to tell you exactly the dose, exactly how to give it, exactly when to give that booster. We're going to talk about why boosters are so stinking important here just a little bit. Here's something that's low-hanging fruit, y'all. When you pick up a vaccine, look at the lot and the serial number. Also look at the expiration date when you pick it up at wherever you're getting it from. Look at the expiration date first. A lot of times I'll go on these feed supplies, and if the refrigerator's not locked, I'll go rambling through their refrigerator just to look. And a lot of times those vaccines are expired. I also had a producer, he was anal. I think he was more anal than me on keeping up with stuff. And he kept up with his lot and serial numbers. He documented a refrigerator temp in his refrigerator. He kept records of all this stuff. And that's, come on guys, that's not that hard to do. It's pretty easy to do. He had a vaccine break, and we got in contact with the vaccine company, and they recouped some of the cost of his vaccine. They paid for some of the diagnostics and gave him a bottle of Draxxin. If he hadn't kept up with all of that, they would have just hung up the phone laughing at us while we were talking to him. That's easy stuff. Keep up with that stuff. Timing. Here we go. Here's another reason your vaccine may not be working. When are you giving it? And I realize we got a big audience tonight. The audience that I was with the other day, nobody said they did stockers. And so I mostly was trying to talk in the range of for all cow-calf. So I'll go over cow-calf right quick, and then we can bring up a stocker. Stocker and feedlot will be just a little bit different. But timing. Initially, I want to get that, ideally, I want to get the initial vaccine in that calf. And here's that number, 2 to 4 months of age. Once again, if the sun's shining 72 degrees on your farm, that's where you need to stay. Don't change. Stay right there. 2 to 4 months of age with a booster given before weaning, or whatever that label says. You may even give a second booster. Think about it. What is the daily life cycle of a calf? It's 2 to 4 months of age. He's running around the pasture. He's playing with his buddies. He's nursing mama. He's laying down in the sun. He's sunning. That calf is not under stress. You think about this calf down here, though. I'm giving the initial vaccine, or I'm right here at weaning, giving that vaccine. That calf is stressed. The whole idea is to get a high level of immunity in around weaning when that calf is going to have a challenge during that stressful period. And then we could talk another 30 or so minutes on weaning protocols, on different types of ways to reduce stress during weaning. So, man, we can keep going, but I'm just saying right here, the timing of that vaccine is extremely important. Here's another one. Timing is going to be extremely important on when you're giving this. Scours. The scours is kind of a twofold type thing, and I realize right now, a lot of y'all probably got as much nasty stuff on your place today as we got here, and so your pastures are a mud bog, and it's extremely difficult. But as Justin said earlier, I didn't just read this out of a book and I'm telling you how to do this. I used to do this myself. I understand this time of year. I can remember having to hunt a halfway dry spot to set a round bale down to feed cows. I know what you're doing. I know what you got to go through. And sometimes we may have to burn a round bale or two just unrolling it so cows that are calving have a clean spot to lay down on. But vaccinated mama 4 to 6 weeks prior to calving with that scours vaccine. That way, antibodies are going to be in her colostrum. So when the calf nurses, it's got protection. And once again, here we go. We've got an awfully nasty area that calf can be born in. That's an easy way to pick up scours or other GI diseases. They're going to hit that calf on down the road. And if you're wondering, yes, I have been asked if humans could take the bovine coronavirus and protect them. Okay, boosters. I know you've heard me say boosters a couple of times, and here's why boosters are so stinking important. All right, now, first of all, look, we've got that lag time when we give that first, or when we're giving that vaccine. Notice it's going to take roughly about 7 days before our antibody protection starts to kick in. You see, it's about 2 weeks before it really gets up to the top of that roller coaster. Then it starts going back down again. But if you'll notice here, it's about 2 to 3 weeks when you give that second booster. When you give the booster, and it causes that secondary antigen response. Look how those antibodies then climb. Look how much more higher level of antibodies you make here as you do here. Think about it this way. Okay. If I were standing there in front of you, I could show you my physique and you would understand that I go to the gym annually. Right here, that's kind of what my physique looks like. I got that Michelin tire right around my midsection. Well, if we've got those football players that are going to be on the front line, that coach wants them pumping iron. And you can see right here, visiting annually doesn't get it. He wants in that gym twice a day, pumping iron to where when they meet that challenge, they're to fight it off. And that's exactly what that vaccine does. When you give that booster, it tricks that immune system to make all those cells we talked about earlier. That's why I want you to see that, so you'll understand, well, it really is important to give that booster. Don't just read that bottle. Another shot in 3 weeks. Are you kidding me? I ain't doing that. There's a much, much better chance of protection on that animal if you give that booster. How we handle those vaccines. Most of the times, the reason we have disease break is little to do with the vaccine itself, but how we handled it. I like to go pick up my vaccines in a cooler that's already got an ice pack in it. And then when I get to the house, it goes in that fridge I know is working right, and we're documenting the temperatures. And then when I go shoot side, I got it in a cooler shoot side. Now, you can go with the Cadillac model, that Yeti cooler that holds ice for 5 days, or you can go with the VW Beetle model right here, where you take a styrofoam box, you cut a hole in it to put your syringe in, and mark it. That's extremely important. You mark what you're doing there so you'll know that that's where that vaccine goes. Here's another one right here. This one's pretty cool here. They took, I like what they did here. I wished I'd have thought of this. This is kind of the next step up. It's not necessarily that Yeti cooler, but they did take, kind of your regular igloo cooler that you can get at Walmart. Took a hole saw, cut some holes in it. Here we go, here's some Alabama ingenuity PVC pipe. Put a piece of PVC pipe in there, and then a label maker, and mark it to where you know what vaccine syringe goes into that holder. So when you get in a hurry shoot side, you know what you're grabbing. Here's another little something that we do with the students. We've got our syringes, of course, color-coded balls on the end of them there. We use one that has a black ball on the end of it for black leg. And then we have a yellow ball for the respiratory. So just kind of a quick little, hey, which one's supposed to go where? Oh, black leg. So, just any kind of marking system that helps you keep up with it. Because I know you get in a hurry shoot side, stuff gets going. We all think that there's somebody with that stopwatch behind us, somebody from NASCAR with one of those stopwatches behind us watching it and timing us when we're working cows. But really, we just need to slow down, take our time. And then, of course, here's our Yeti cooler. Here's the fancy one. And you can, once again, you see the color-coded little holsters that you can put it into. And what's pretty cool about these is you can also store extra supplies inside this. But if you don't want to pay $500 for one of these, you can just get you a toolbox from Walmart, put your extra supplies in it, and your little styrofoam cooler. Just make sure you mark stuff. All righty, right here. Y'all, I think this is our fault. When I say our, I mean veterinarians, cattle specialists, pharmaceutical reps. I think we've got it into y'all's head that if you vaccinate, you are ironclad right here. If I vaccinate, I have achieved immunization, and buddy, now I've got Arnold Schwarzenegger cows. Well, guess what, y'all? Wrong. A wrong thought process. And that's what I want to get across to you tonight. And I realize that we're still here preaching, give, vaccinate, but you got to do other stuff. I mean, think about it. Let's just say you go out and you buy a brand new set of Michelin tires for your truck. You done laid down about $1,400 for a set of tires to go on your truck. Now, what's the first thing you're going to do? I know if it's me, in my head, I'm going, dadgum, I just spent $1,400 on tires. I don't want them wearing out prematurely. I'm going to take it to the shop. I'm going to make sure that it's aligned properly. So those tires I just put up there aren't getting worn out too quickly. So I'm going to make sure that when I give that, I'm going to do some kind of management behind my vaccine too. I love the statement, and I really can't remember where I got it. I know somebody smarter than me said this to me, and I wrote it down. I just can't. I wished I could remember who told me so I could give them the credit for it, because I didn't come up with this. But poor management overcomes the best medication every time, hands down. I don't care. I put that set of Michelin tires. Y'all may have a, in my mind, I go Michelin tires. That's the best tire on the road. You may think, no, they're crap. But if I'm going to put $1,400 worth of tires on my truck, I'm gonna make sure it's aligned to where I'm not wearing my tires out. I'm going to help those tires last as long as it can. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to try to reduce on-farm pathogens. Biosecurity, right here. This is simple as it gets, guys. They made their own sign. Listen, you're about to enter a livestock facility. You're welcome, but I've got a set of standards I want you to meet. Mama used to, oh my word, don't you walk in the house with boots on from outside. You take your boots off when you come in the house or before you come in the house. Mama would wear that butt out. I ain't talking about time out, go sit in the corner. I mean, the switch you had to go out there and pick for yourself. I've got a set of standards I want you to meet. I expect you to put a pair of boots on, of those disposable boots. And here's what they did. They took a little mailbox and put the disposable boots in it. You wear while you're on the farm, and then here's a trash can to throw them in when you leave. And don't be afraid. Hey, guy, hey, dude, you're not wearing boots on my farm. I expect you to wear boots. You can leave, or you go put them on. So, make a set of standards and adhere to it. Protect your investment. Here's something else. I had this question asked one time about, hey, would you come do a presentation on vaccinated stressed animals, or, what does vaccine do in animals that are stressed or high-headed or whatever? And I came up with this. I couldn't find one that was particularly on stress, but I found one on high temperament animals. Y'all know the one I'm talking about. The one that's hunting human rectums when you're walking in the pasture and keeps everybody else stirred up. If you look right here, cortisol is built up through stress, through these systems here. And I want you to notice what else I've got circled right here: the reproductive system and the immune system. Cortisol has a negative effect on reproduction and on the immune system, on how that immune system responds. So if you got a stressed animal, and I've got some graphs here, just showing you that temperamental animal is the one on the bottom. Excuse me. The calm animal is the one on the bottom. That temperamental animal, that high-headed one, is the one on the top. You can see here where cortisol levels are much, much higher in that high-headed animal. So cortisol is constantly built up. This is also what they did here, they did the vaccine in those animals. You've got that calm animal, and this is looking at white blood cells, lymphocytes. That's those white blood cells we talked about first, a lymphocyte or a neutrophil or a macrophage or eosinophil. Those are all lymphocytes. And you can see here that a calm animal has a much higher level of white blood cells. They're able to fight off disease. Whereas those temperamental animals, all high-headed, they don't make as many. Can't fight it all. Also looking at IgM. Remember we talked about IgM to begin with at the first of the talk. Once again, IgM's higher in the calm animals. And also IgG, same type thing. That calm animal has a higher level of IgGs to fight off infection. Okay, I'm gonna kind of speed through these a little bit because we need to stop in about 10 minutes, Justin.
We're due to be done at 7 o'clock Central. So you still got about 25 minutes or so.
25. Okay. All right.
We can leave some for questions too.
I don't have to go quite as fast as I thought I would. All right. I just want to go over some of the pathogens or issues that we have here. some of the disease agents that we do have vaccines available for, some of the virals and the bacterial pathogens, and kind of just looking at BRD. When I say BRD, I mean bovine respiratory disease. There's kind of a pattern to it. You'll have that stress that's upon that calf, usually at maternal separation, or you'll have that stress of that animal that's reached the end, it's separated from mom, and now it's going to the stocker, it's going to the sale barn, those kind of things. So first of all, think kindergarten. Think kindergarten. Same type of things happen with our first year veterinary students when we were still getting together. We're taking a group of students from all over. We're bringing them into a room, letting them sit next to each other, shoulder to shoulder. They're under a common ventilation system, and then we stress them. And I tell them that is a perfect example of a going to a stockyard, because they're commingled from all over. There's aerosol from somebody coughing or sneezing. These calves here are getting processed, or they're bawling, and it irritates the mucosal system. Then we go to the auction barn, we get back around the stocker, we get exposed again, we're commingled again, transported down the road, I don't know how many hours, fatigue, commingled again. And so that bacteria or whatever it is, or virus, has that perfect opportunity to get in there. And that's what gets this whole pattern started here. Here's another linear pattern. We've got enzootic calf pneumonia. Maybe we've got some failure of passive transfer like we talked about a while ago. Maternal antibody is waning. We're mixing animal groups together. Bad weather, air quality. Air quality is extremely important when commingling calves in barns. Make sure if you're building a facility, make sure that there's plenty of ventilation. That is my biggest thing right there. I've had a lot of guys, and I am not a barn expert, okay? I am not a barn designer. I'm not an architect. But the first thing I'll tell them is, you make sure there's plenty of ventilation through this barn. I don't care if you're cold. I want plenty of ventilation moving through this barn. All right, here's what happens. Virus moves in. The virus is usually the one that's causing the problem right off the bat. And then the bacteria moves in for the problem. Okay, this is exactly what coronavirus does to us. Coronavirus also affects the calf's GI system. Right here, we've got the lining of our esophagus and going into our lungs and stuff. We have cilia. That cilia is there to beat and waves and moves that mucus up to where we can cough it out. Well, here's exactly what happens with coronavirus, with us, that makes it so bad, is when that gets in there, it shaves off that cilia. And then we talked about a while ago, the immune system comes in, starts killing cells. Well, you can see all those cells are destroyed right there, and the virus also destroys cells too. And then we can't move that mucus out, and that's why it is such a problem. Same thing with a calf with diarrhea because of coronavirus. That cilia is gone. They can no longer absorb that fluid that's back there. That's what that's for. That cilia is to help with that fluid absorption. So the cilia is gone, and all it can do is go out the south end, pipe stream diarrhea. And then the bacteria moves in. That's what I'm showing you right here. We have bacteria here. Notice it's green. That bacteria that's in the lining of the mucosa of the sinus passages, normal bacteria lives there. I could go out and swab any cow in the state of Tennessee, and I guarantee you, I can pick up this bacteria right here, that Mannheimia and the Pastorella. But what happens is that weakened immune system comes along because of that virus. And then you can see right here, that low area right there, that red triangle, that bacteria moves down in there, sets up housekeeping, and starts growing. It overcomes the lung tissue. So any of those pathogens are normal commensals until that virus comes through and gets everything set up. And once again, Here you go, look. You can see where the cilia is gone, and then the fluid starts to build up inside that alveoli, and that's when you get that coughing calf. Or damaged lung tissue as this. This is that ventral lobe right here, and you can see here, this is nice, healthy pink lung, and this is dead stuff. This tissue has been affected badly. You can see it actually looks like it's been bleeding. No air is going to pass through that, and of course that calf can't breathe, or that cow can't breathe. Same thing right there. You can see the hemorrhaging that goes on with inside the lungs, and now you got a lunger. Okay, IBR. There's respiratory, and there's respiratory and a genital. We can vaccinate against both. You may see this red nose. This is red nose in a cow, and you can kind of see there's some awfully irritated mucous membranes. And usually incubation is 2 to 6 days. And then later on down the road, that's when the bacterial pneumonia will move in. But you can kind of see there sloughing tissue. It can be pretty nasty. And you also notice that person's wearing gloves. Always wear gloves, please, please. And it is spread by latently infected carriers. What can happen there? Herpes is forever. All God's children's got herpes virus. It hangs around until there's a period of stress. Right here, you've got all those calves that are packed in that trailer together, or they're all being weaned together. Who knows? This is a group of calves right here, probably being weaned on diesel fuel. They're gonna get so sick. Everybody's gonna get exposed together, and that latency hangs on inside the trigeminal cells that are inside the nasal passages. Now, y'all probably, as kids, I can remember I had them, cold sores on your corner of your mouth there, and would go away until you had a period of stress. Either taking a test, or I don't know, some other stressful period comes along, and those cold sore pop back up. Same type thing right here. That herpes virus hangs around just waiting on a period of stress. BVD. All right, we got a question number 4.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Now, kind of just look this word. Now, I realize this is one of the big $2 words. But what does the term cytopathic refer to? Just read that word and just kind of go, okay, what does that mean?
Got a bunch coming in, Lou. I'll just give it a few more.
That's fine. That's fine. I could tell a corny joke too, but you've already gotten that one for tonight.
I wouldn't suggest trying to outdo her, Lou. Well, mine never get any good reviews, but hers are always
Always good.
get high marks.
I was thinking about the one. Hey, did you hear about the horse walks into a bar and the barkeep goes, "Hey, what's with the long face?"
I'm just going to let that process.
I was trying so hard not to laugh.
Is that a clinical diagnosis?
All right, what we got? Very
Sharon.
good. Both B and C. Yeah. What happens there? A cytopathic. Let's kind of go to BVD here, because BVD. I mean, we could spend 2 hours on BVD, but let's go to BVD here real quick, and I'll explain cytopathic. You have, and I am just scratching the surface here, y'all. I'm serious. We could spend 2 hours just on BVD. But you got the virus here, and you got a type 1 and a type 2. And you got non-cytopathic. That is does not kill cells. Non-cytopathic does not kill cells. Then you've got cytopathic, which kills cells. So when you've got a non-cytopathic type of BVD, that's usually going to cause an acute infection of BVD. But with cytopathic cells, that's the one that is going to be a terminal type BVD. That's where that animal is going to get extremely sick, may even die on you real quick. And also non-cytopathic, we talked about cytopathic there as far as BVD virus. It's an important component of it as far as, like we just said, killing cows or creating awfully nasty pneumonia. But then you've got a non-cytopathic cell, like we just said, it causes, or I should back up and say it doesn't cause death. It doesn't cause cell death. Cow may just have an acute type infection of BVD, but it can also non-cytopathic cells or BVD can get within the cells and then create what we call a persistently infected animal. And here's what we are right here, the clinical pictures here, that you can have, excuse me, a non-cytopathic cell may cause diarrhea. It may cause an upper respiratory infection. But then you go into that cytopathic, excuse me, and then the non-cytopathic can also cause that persistent infection. But then you got the cytopathic cells. It's going to cause an abortion. Those cells are going to die. That calf's going to come out. It's going to cause brain damage, tissue damage. But here's the one that's really, really important is that persistently infected animal. And we have those vaccines that are available for this. That's why I want to go over this real quick. That non-cytopathic gets into, let me back up. A non-cytopathic, mama gets exposed to a non-cytopathic strain of the virus during a very specific time window of pregnancy, 40 to 120 days of pregnancy. That calf gets inside, it gets inside of those calf cells. The calf doesn't, there's no immunity whatsoever at that time. Those cells are completely they are not competent whatsoever. They think that virus is self. So now that calf is born and is constantly producing BVD virus because the immune system says, oh, that's self. I can't fight that. So that's where a non-cytopathic can actually be very, very dangerous. Also, here's that timing thing that we talked about a while ago. All right. And I realize it just takes too much time to vote and be too difficult. So think about it. And I guarantee you, some of you probably already thought about it already. I'm talking about timing. What's going to be the best time that I can vaccinate mama timing wise, and it's going to protect her? Well, I can vaccinate her during her open period prior to breeding. That's going to give her the best amount of protection against a persistent infection being within that calf. And especially if I get that booster in there at the right time, now I've got better protection for that calf. Once again, you can do it with 2 shots of modified live. There's some good data out there that says you can do it with an initial modified live and then follow up with a booster of killed. Work with your veterinarian to see what you think is best for your farm, best for your operation. And then right there, just 75% of all acute BVD infections are subclinical. You'll never know it. You never know it. And also PIs. It's estimated that prevalence for BVD PIs in cow-calf operations is 0.5%. And you go, Doc, that ain't much. What do you mean? Why are you worried about that? Well, if you look at it just a little bit, you can get 100 calves that are roughly 500 pounds that fit onto a pot belly. When you look at that ratio right there, that relates out to 1 out of every 2 trailers at the risk of carrying a PI. So that number might look low, and I really think it's that low because we're not testing enough. If you don't want to know you got something, don't test. Just ignorance is bliss. Just keep moving right along. Don't test for it, and you'll never know you got it. You want to know you got something, start testing, start looking, and you'll find it. And also here's something else right here that I was talking about a while ago when I was saying neighbors across the fence may have something. It takes as little as 1 hour of fence contact with a PI to transmit acute infections. And once again, we spend 2 hours just on BVD, but you can have an acute infection. That is basically you get the flu, you think you're going to die, and then you get over it. But PI has to happen in a very specific manner. Here's something that, if you want to stick a feather in your hat, PIs are created during pregnancy. If it's born a PI, it's always a PI. If it's not born a PI, it never can become a PI. So once again, I probably confused a lot of folks, but we'll keep moving on.
Hey, Doc, just want to let you know we got about 10 minutes left.
10 minutes. I'll kind of speed up a little bit. We're not worried about that one right there. Let's move on to BRSV. BRSV is, let me back up just real quick. Intranasal vaccine. This is what intranasal vaccine covers. BRSV and PI3. You need to come back later with an injectable to cover BVD. BVD is not an intranasal. BRSV, really sick animal. It destroys a lot of lung tissue. I'm going to let you watch this video just real quick if I can get it to play. It's not going to play. Why is it not going to play? All right. No, I'm not going to do that. Let's keep moving. This calf is really, really struggling to breathe. In other words, it's struggling to breathe air in. It's struggling to push air out. That is a calf with BRSV because it destroys so much lung tissue. And then we move into bacterial pneumonia. We've already talked about this. It's normal there. Then they become pathogenic. Mannheimia hemolytica is the badass. It's the one that'll kill cells. Notice those cells right there. Punches holes in them. It literally destroys tissue badly. This cow gets bad, sick fast. And you can see how much of that lung tissue is destroyed. I mean, it is just shot. Pastorella. Pastorella is one that causes more of a chronic. Pastorella causes lungers. The ones that hang around, never get better. And here's what I think about, man, I have trouble, calves packed in on top of each other and poorly ventilated barns. Man, I look at that and I have trouble breathing. Histophilis causes a unique little syndrome here. Thromboembolic meningeal encephalitis causes tracheitis, it bleeds. Arthritis gets down the joint, gets in the brain, causes bleeding here. You'll see a neurologic calf, pericarditis, of course, pneumonia. Causes the endothelial cells die, and then the basement membrane is exposed, and it starts the coagulation cascade. That's why you get those blood clots in the brain. So that's this problem causes that heme we talked about. Mycoplasma, there's 4 flavors of mycoplasma. You've got mastitis here. You can see the swollen lymph nodes. Also causes granular nodules inside the lung. And of course, you can imagine that animal can't breathe with all those there. And that causes condemnation of cow at slaughterhouses. Then you've got an otitis, gets in the inner ear, causes a head tilt. And also you've probably seen the ones that have the swollen joints that are so bad. The problem with it, a lot of these start as pneumonia, and then they spread by the blood to other areas of the body. The antibiotics are not that effective, and the vaccine is really not that good either. Mycoplasma doesn't have a cell wall. It just has a biofilm there, and so nothing can get to the bacteria. That biofilm causes everything to just go away, and so that's why mycoplasma is so difficult to treat. There are a couple of antibiotics out there for it. They're still really difficult to treat. We've got some diseases, trichomoniasis camp. Vibrio is a bacteria transmitted by coitus, and then trich is a protozoa. Both of these are spread by cows We've got IBR. We've already talked about herpes. That one can be spread through breeding, but most likely is going to be spread through, like we talked about earlier, aerosol, that type of thing. IBR is generally accepted as the most common diagnosis cause of abortion. So it causes abortion kind of late in pregnancy. I can control it with vaccination and biosecurity. Lepto is another one, contact through fluids, infertility, abortions. This one is lepto is zoonotic. We can get this one. Wear gloves, y'all. And then Harjo bovis is the one that's most important here. They make one that's nothing but Harjo bovis. So in my opinion, this is the one to worry about, but most of you are just going to use all the serovars together. Work with your veterinarian to make the decision on which one you need. I've got the cores and non-cores, which is blacklegs, the respiratories. I've got some others, Pastorella, Brucella, Scours, pink eye. We talked about those. Here's what I recommend with nursing calves. They get a black leg and then a respiratory. We talked about when to give it. Then we got stockers and feedlots. You've got to add in a Mannheimia and a Pastorella with those calves, along with your respiratory and your blackleg. You got to. And then breeding animals, this is something that you can add in there later down the road, but I'm worried about those the respiratories and the blacklegs first, and then I can worry about these breeding vaccines a little bit later down the road. Here's just something that was put together through some of the protocols that were brought out, BI and Zoetis. This, once again, you kind of see here, just kind of some things that you can do. Once again, you can see the timing and the ones to use. Once again, work with your vet to make sure that you're using what you need. I want to go over this real quick. I'll go fast so I won't run into too much time here. Is it even worth it? I've got two producers here. Bud, he vaccinates. Luke, he doesn't do anything. So Bud's cost of vaccines, and I'm going to say he changed needles every shot, is about almost $1,500 for 4 years. Luke, nothing. Doesn't cost him a dime. But let's look at it in the long run. Bud's still gonna, I tried to keep this as real as possible. I try to go, Bud's not gonna have any calls at all because he vaccinated. He's got a couple of vet calls, some money on meds, no losses, no disposal, no replacement. In the long run, about $1,900. But Luke, he had to have several vet calls, more meds. Look at what he lost. All he did was lose a couple of calves and a cow. And I looked up these prices on Knoxville's stockyard on Friday. These are numbers that they had on Friday. So if you lose 2-3 calves and a cow, you've lost about $2,000. I got to do something with them. I can't just leave them laying out there in the pasture. I got to bury them, or I got to get them hauled off or something. So I put in a number for that. And I need to replace at least one the cow I lost, right? And this is based on about 30 to, I put it to you this way. I had 30 cows, 30 calves, and a bull is the prices that I use for this. So you can see in the long run, it cost Luke about $5,000 to not vaccinate. Okay, read the label. Don't mix them. Label those syringes. Mix enough for 1 hour. Watch the temp. Get the air out if you got an automatic syringe. If you got air in there, you may not get the proper dose in the animal when you vaccinate. With boiling water, not disinfectant. Changing those needles, proper needle size. Write it down. Questions?
All right, Doc, we're right at time. I'm gonna ask you a couple of rapid fire questions. Just first thing that pops to your head. Are the vaccines that you mentioned, do they require prescription?
No. All of these vaccines that I talked about tonight do not require prescription. There's a couple that require, you'll have to go through your veterinarian to get them. And so I guess you basically could say, yeah, that's a vaccine. There's a Yonis vaccine that's it ain't worth doodly squat, but you got to get the state vet's approval to use it. And there's an anaplasmosis vaccine. You have to get that in your veterinarian as well. Otherwise, you can go get these feed store
All right.
or offline at Valley Vet or something.
Can you use a vaccine that's a week past the expiration date?
Oh, sure, you can use it all you want to, but what did we go back to? What did we say a while ago? Your vaccine may not work. So if you have vaccine break, you may be going, well, I used an expired vaccine. Well, I'm going to call the vaccine company. They're going to ask me, was that vaccine expired? Quick as you say yes, they're going to hang up the phone on you. I guess you could, if you don't mind putting up with lying, you could lie about it, but I would not.
All right. So size and gauge of needle you would suggest for pick a injection and let us know how you decide.
I'm just going to go with your typical modified live mixed together vaccine. I usually will use an 18 gauge needle, but you could use a 20 if you wanted to, because it's not very viscous. There are some other vaccines that I remember. Golly, there was one. They came out with one. Once again, this one wasn't worth doodly squat. It was a foot rot vaccine. Golly, that stuff was like pushing molasses through a needle. It was thick. You had to use a 16 gauge to get it through the needle. It was thick. So I recommend as thin a needle as possible and still get the job done. I usually go with 18x1 because it's going to withhold reaching in and sticking through that leather. They make boots out of cowhide for a reason.
There you go. Let me pick another one here. I'll let you maybe get into a little more detail. One good one I saw here that I get sometimes that I refer to you quite a bit is, can individual farmers send ear notches to the state lab to get tested for BVD? You might want to address the ear notch part of that first, that they change the blood, right?
You're correct. Okay, let me go over that just real fast with you. If you are going to send a sample to the Cord Ellington State Diagnostic Lab and you want to test for persistently infected BVD, it has to be an ear notch. They did at one time accepted Surratt blood for testing, and for whatever reason they had issues. I remember that summer it happened. My phone lit up one day like a Christmas tree. Folks are calling me left and right. Doc, I got BVD PI infected cattle and I've never had it. And I got in touch with the state lab, and sure enough, they said, "Oh, we've had some problems. We've had some issues. We're going to completely go away from blood testing for PI. We're only going to accept ear notches," which in my opinion is a very good move. It's a much, much better test for PI. And yes, a producer can do that on their own.
Okay.
And let me say this one real fast. I'm gonna guide you to your county extension agent. TAEP will pay you to vaccinate your cows and BVD test, but you will have to go through a veterinarian to do it. My opinion, that's worth the money. They're going to pay you to do it. They're going to pay you $2-3 a head to vaccinate, and they will pay you, I think it's $3-4 a head to ear notch. But you got to have a vet's affidavit to say yes, you did it.
Okay. And I'm going to give you one more since we're over on time just a little bit. I'd like to say, just been trying for planning purpose for folks planning their evenings, trying to stay real close to time as much as we can. And I'll reiterate too that, your county extension agent is always available front door of the University of Tennessee right there. And if they don't know the answer, they can get you in contact with Dr. Strickland to get these answers. So the one I'll wrap up here with, Lew, is if you're using a modified live on the calves, will they abort as an adult if they had 2 rounds? The appropriate vaccination protocol as a calf with modified live. Does that count as getting it in them when they're open?
Okay, yes. Real quick, here's what I generally recommend if you're going to go with a modified live. Get that modified live in that heifer before she even sees the first breeding. That way, on that, and It'd be great if you got a booster in there, follow the label directions, whatever it tells you to do. But if you get that modified live and that heifer before she starts breeding, yes, that counts for her on down the road. She can now receive a modified live once she's pregnant. Yes, that does count.
Okay.
And
Outstanding. Go ahead.
I will say this too. I should have brought it up. That little blue web address right there. You can go to that and you can send me questions. That's my web page. You can go there, ask me questions. It sends me an email saying, hey, you got a question, and I can answer you directly. So there's a website you can go to as well to contact me with questions.
That's outstanding. Yeah, that helps a lot because there's several really good questions here. It's hard for me to pick some. But I'd really encourage everybody that put a question in the Q&A box or the chat. I see some there too. Please go ahead and put, Dr. Strickland uses those questions in talks, after he sees a good question or a bunch of questions, the same thing, he'll put them into talks going forward. So I'm sure you'd appreciate it too, wouldn't you, Doc? So, Courtney, you might jump on here and help me explain this next part about the survey. So last week's webinar, I think I misexplained how the follow-up survey would work, and Courtney has actually worked to make what I said last week valid for this week. And again, I'll let Courtney confirm this, but you should see a link as soon as we stop the webinar here. In the window that you're viewing the webinar, you'll see a link that you can click and go to the survey, but also there'll be a follow-up email that comes 24 hours after the end of the survey. So tomorrow evening, you'll get a follow-up email with that survey link in it as well. Now you only need to do it once, right, Courtney? Either right now after we end this, if you're able to connect or click on that and go straight to the survey, or tomorrow evening when you receive the follow-up email. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. But I'm not going to let you take the slack. Last week was definitely my fault. You said exactly what they need to do. But as soon as I end this webinar, it should pop up and you should be able to go to it. But do not freak out. Email me because you will receive a follow-up email 24 hours. So tomorrow night, that also has a survey link. And if you're watching this as a group or husband and wife, whatever, if you have multiple people, just click the link how many ever times you need to and fill it out with the different names.
And that'll help your county agent know that you were in attendance this evening. And of course, if you have any other issues with this, you can contact your county ag agent and or us and let us help you out with that. But it should be working pretty well the way it's set up and described here. Courtney, can you think of anything else we need to follow up with this evening?
I don't think so. I've had a few people ask for the slides and those are available to you. I tried today to send them out before the webinar to everyone that had registered, but if you didn't get them, just contact your county agent because I have distributed them to them and they can get you a copy.
Okay. Well, that's great. Until we see you back here next Monday for the next installment of the Spring 2021 Master Beef webinar series. We appreciate your questions and your attendance, and just appreciate any feedback you can offer us on those surveys. So thanks and have a good evening.